Hey everyone, Mars from Consequence here. I'm going to make an updated tier list for the upcoming raid in 11.1. So I made one about a week ago. There was changes as expected. There's also new data that's come in. So I'm going to give a better feel for like where I think the classes go. Note that I know basically nothing, and this is just all from what people tell me, what I see in Sims, and how the raid design works. So what you're gonna see here, it will not be 100% accurate. I take it with a grain of salt. So rounding out the bottom here, I'm gonna put Og. Um, Before the Arms Warrior nerf to execute, I actually thought Og could potentially see play if there was a big execute phase and you needed a Evoker, and maybe buffing the arms could be good. Um, but I'm kind of teetering on is that worth it or not, and I'm just going to put it in C. Again, it could just be, you could see it in extremely niche situations in Raid. It's still an extremely powerful class in theory, but the amount of work you need to do to get it to that point is going to be so much that it's just going to be easier to play Dev or even Prez. So the next thing here, I'm going to be putting Outlaw and Serve. So these classes, this is B minus. So Outlaw and Serve, they're fine. Outlaw could have some extremely niche uses. It really suffers from like leaving the boss, which isn't very good in Raid. It has some major flaws. It might do decent damage, but in Prog, it's always struggled. Serve, it does pretty good if you go all single target or all AoE, but it takes up a melee spot, and there's other hunter specs that are more desirable. So it just falls because of because of that. So we up to the B tier here. At the bottom, we're gonna have Marks Hunter. Marks will do pretty good single target. It's alright in specific AoE situations. It also suffers from the hey, there's another hunter spec that's better, which makes just Marks worse to play. Um, so that's where Marks is going to be. Next, we have Prez. Weirdly, Prez could see play. They nerfed Og, and Dev looks pretty solid, but if you don't see a Dev, you could get the Evoker buff or Evoker utility from the Prez spot. It's definitely not the king like it was in the first season, so putting it in B. Next, I'm going to put Assassination Rogue. It's pretty low in Sims, but it's really consistent damage. It's easy to hit the Sim. It's a safe class. You'll probably see Rogue swap to it if they're looking for more of a consistent output. So next, you have AF. Again, if the fight really dictates to it, it could be really good. It does lower sim single target, I believe, and it's a niche spec that if the fight's perfect for it, it's going to be fine. But I doubt you'll see it in the prog setting. So next here, sorry, I'm looking at my single monitor to pull up the list. At the bottom of B plus, I'm going to be putting Guardian Druid if I can find it. Um, Guardian Druid, it's fine. It's solid. It does good damage. It's gonna be outshined by the other tanks, and that's just the reality. But if you have a really good Guardian player in your guild, there's no reason not to run one 100% do. And next here I have two healers. I have Holy Paladin and Resto Shaman. I think these healers kind of get a bad rap. Um, Holy Paladin's been slowly but surely getting buffed. It has some huge problems in the raid with like mana and throughput, but it's still a paladin. It still brings good utility, and there's a lot of good holy paladins players out there. And the way this is kind of shaping up is if you have a good player in that fourth spot or even the third spot, you just slot him in. So that's where holy paladin's gonna fall. Same with Resto Shaman. If you have a really good Resto Shaman, go ahead and run it. Resto Shaman is a weird class where it has a big skill cap. Where like if you're just an average Resto Shaman, you're you'll be doing fine. But like a really good Resto Shaman's gonna be giving buffs to the right people. Does some really nice healing throughput profiles in niche situations. We saw it with Kaveza. So I think that class gets a very bad rap, and it's really, really good outside like the top 10. So next I have Arcane Mage. I've been moving this class a lot. Its raid profile is always really good the last few tiers, but like its damage looks bad in PTR, but it's always hard to tell with mages. Most mage players aren't very good at Arcane. Um, and it's only like a really few players that kind of out like really make that class what it is. So it's a big mystery, and we'll have to see. Next, Ellie. Um, Sim-wise, it's middle of the pack. Was doing extremely well at the end of Nuremberg Palace. I think it was at the top spec, or the second spec, but it's always kind of been outshined by other range classes slightly. Um, if you have a super sick Ellie player and you have that space in the range roster, more than just run it. It's gonna be used in the top 100 for sure. You won't see a lot of them probably, but it's definitely possible. So next I have Demo. Demo is Warlock's, I think, best single target spec. It's kind of middle of the road though, but you'll always have Warlock in your raid, and Demo will just be used for the single target fights, and then you'll see Destro probably, maybe AF for the other fights. Next, I put Sub. I was kind of teetering on moving Sub up, um, but it's looking like the best rogue spec, and you'll probably see most subs play or most rogues play Sub for every fight, and maybe swap to Sin, and then a more consistent, easier profile. Next, I have two tank specs. I got Venge and I've got Brew. I kind of lumped them together here. They're both completely fine. If you have a super sick Brew or super sick Venge, run it. But they don't bring as much utility potentially as the other tanks with the current DPS that you would bring, most likely. So going up to A minus, the bottom of the A minus tier, we're gonna put Frost. I've been moving Frost up and down a lot too, just like I was Sub, but it does good damage. Um, you'll always have a mage in your raid, and if it's not a firefight, you could easily just see Frost. I can definitely see some fights in this raid being Frost favored, so it's going to be going into the A minus tier. Next, I have another healer, Resto Druid. There's a lot of spot healing in this raid. Resto Druid's really good at that. And just let me just put these other two classes in. It's going to make more sense. So I'm going to be putting Balance and Feral. I actually put all the druids together on purpose. So hypothetically, I think what was happening here is like before the Feral buffs was that guilds were thinking about running a Resto Druid and only bring a Balanced Druid when Balanced Druid had a good raid profile. Feral got buffed and is pretty good, so you might not run a Resto Druid and just run a Feral / Balance. Who knows? In short, though, if you have a super sick DPS Druid player or a super sick Resto Druid player, just take them. They can be the Druid buff. You could even run a Resto Druid and a DPS Druid. Especially early in the raid, there's a lot of instances of like Roots being really good as well. So it's a good class in general. Pretty safe. So I got all three Druid specs here together. And for consistency, I'm putting both DK specs together here in A minus. They sim pretty well, both of them. DK has some fights that favor it really well, and some fights it might struggle a little with. On the bright side, they have an Unholy as a build they can do where they can be away from the boss and do abilities, kind of like a ranged DPS, which is really really nice. But I put both DK specs here together. I think it's a pretty safe spot for them, but easily can move up, especially Frost. Next, I put Prot Warrior, extremely good tank. I could easily see Prot Warrior being in the race for world first. It does a lot of damage. Um, the sims that people probably saw are fake because no tank is ever going to be able to execute a sim absolutely perfectly ever because they have to tank the boss and do abilities. I'm pretty sure it has something execute with something to do with there as well, which made it look weird. But it's a very good tank. It does good damage, and I can easily see it being brought. Next, I have Destrolock. Uh, this fight favors Destrolock's profile extremely well. Destrolock uh, doesn't do great single target, so it's going to be, I think, more of a niche double stack scenario um, where Demo's not super good, but Destro has a real good profile for the raid. So you might see it like, okay, this is a Destro fight, we'll take two. But very good. So next, we have Evoker. Um, Dev's always a weird class for me to rank because I never really know if how good it is. Um, like last year, they changed that before the raid came out and ended up being really good, and Og was like also really good, but Dev was easier to perform. Um, Evoker utility is fantastic, and you're gonna probably be having multiple priests in the raid, which is going to boost Evoker's viability. Now, some of these fights at the end of the raid might not be great for Evoker. It's really hard to tell. I'm actually not sure on Mugsy if Evokers can cleave the ad and the boss. And also, One Arm Bandit and um, Mugsy have hard and rage phases. And yes, Dev can do good damage with Dragon Rage, but outside of that, like, are all the other classes going to outshine them? I'm very torn on the spec. I'm assuming at the highest level, um, you'll see multiple of them to cater the priests and healers, but the lower you go, the less that's really needed because you have more gear. So we'll see, but I'm going to leave them here for now. Next I have Rhett, but like, okay. Rhett's very strange right now. It is Sunday night at 1 a.m. Um, Rhett's bugged on PTR or maybe live, but it's bugged right now. Like, and there's a build out there that theoretically it's like the best spec in the game, but it's probably gonna get fixed. So I'm gonna leave it here in A minus, but it could literally be S or it could literally be like B plus or something. So I don't know, and I'm just gonna leave it here for now. Next I have Mistweaver. It got nerfed, honestly, probably too much in my opinion. It's still really good, and I'm not sure if guilds are going to change their plans if they're planning to use a Mistweaver. But it kind of opened the door for all these other healers that are not the two pre-specs. So before it was S, and now it's an A minus, but it's gonna be the top of A minus. It's still extremely good, but it's not like crazy OP. So at the bottom of A, I'm gonna put Shadow Priest. I thought about putting it down here, but I'm gonna be a little spicy and put it up here. Um, Shadow Priest has a really good raid profile. It for the the current raid. There are some fights it's not very good at, and you probably won't see it being used. But the fights it is good at, it does extremely well. So I'm gonna be a little spicy and put it in A just for its sheer potential, but it's also Shadow, so maybe it's just gonna be down bad. Next, I'm gonna put Fire Mage. It's the best mage spec in my opinion. It's really safe. Um, you might only see one just because of like how your comp's gonna look, but it's really good, really safe, and a really good mage player can like really help your guild out if you have it. So next, I don't really know the order of these that well, but I'm gonna put Enhance. It keeps getting nerfed. It's still good. Um, it's either going to be completely fine or it's going to run into that problem that some classes have where if it gets nerfed so many times and then no one realizes it and it's just bad. But it does do like it does have a good profile for some of these fights, especially early on. And it's probably going to be your shaman buff unless you have a super sick Ellie or a super sick Resto. But it's still good. It's just been nerfed frequently. So next I have Havoc. Again, probably you might only see one of these. But it's near the top in Sims. It does funnel, which is a good niche, and it's just an overall like really good class to have. Um, Even with a Vengeance Demon Hunter, you probably would want a Havoc. So next, I'm gonna be against Spicy. I'm gonna put Windwalker. Windwalker has always been doing well all testing cycle, and it's kind of avoided every single nerf that's come to most other classes. And its raid profile is or its damage profile is extremely good for the raid currently, at least the early stuff. So it would not surprise me if Windwalker was actually bringing your monk buff in theory. Um, but it's a super sick class right now. Next, I'm gonna have two tanks. Blood DK, Prop Pally. They're kind of in a weird spot where it's like, okay, if Ret ends up being OP, then maybe Prop Pally gets worse. If DK is really good, maybe you don't need blood. But for all of testing, it seems like these are the two like safe tanks to bring. Like DK is really tanky. It has grips, even though grips don't seem that good. Um, it does DK cheesy things. It heals itself, and Pally utility is outstanding. So like they're kind of like safe classes to bring, and that's where I think most guilds are going to start with. So I had to put stuff in S, so this might be a little spicy, and you can see there's only a few options left. I'm putting both warrior specs here at the bottom of S. They nerfed arms execute. It's not like so insane that you're just gonna bring as many as possible in any execute fight, regardless of how squishy they are. But it's still a very good class in execute. And Fury sims about the same as arms, and it is really tanky. So it's a safe class if you want to go for execute, you want to go for tankiness and consistency, you have some options. Then I'm going to put BM Hunter. I have no idea why they buffed this class, low key. Um, as a Hunter player, like it makes no sense to me. I thought it would actually get nerfed. When BM Hunter is near the top, it's arguably the best spec in the game because you can do everything on the move. You're basically a melee DPS, right? So you can do all the mechanics. You're really tanky. Um, you do consistent damage. You can hit your sim even while doing stuff. It's a super sick class right now, and I think it's like right there at the top of single target. So last, I'm putting both healing specs together, but I think these are just locked in, like Loki, like Disc and Holy are both super good. It would not shock me if I saw guilds like the race to world first guilds doing double disc. Um, it's really really good, and the better a guild you are, the easier it is to pull off like a disc style type of healer. You have to be very organized, and the other healers have to work around it. Um, and if not, if you're not that coordinated, just play Holy, and it's super sick. You don't have to worry about playing disc. And Holy is also just like insane in general. Um, Symbols is pretty decent. Its healing profile is good. Um, brings PI. Both of them do. I think theoretically Holy is like worse than would be down here, but we're gonna loop it together just so it looks nicer. But that is everything that I have for the tier list this Sunday night. So when they release something on Monday, this is gonna get screenshotted and sent back to me. But other than that, best of luck in the raid, and maybe this was helpful. Maybe I'm gonna get memed on. But good luck. Peace.